Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about some commanders that you need to kill on sight. That's right, these commanders are so deadly, so dangerous that if you don't take them out right away, you're going to be the one that gets taken out. With all that said, let's jump into them. And I already forgot to mention that these are commanders from the second half of this year, and of course, there's only so many that I can highlight because, well, I don't want this episode to be 5 hours long. There's a lot of crazy, powerful commanders, and perhaps the craziest, one of the craziest from this year, is Rowan San of War. My goodness, when this was printed, I was like, that's a thing? We're doing this. Okay, a 4/2 Hewn Wizard with Menace for 1 black and a red. Tap spells you cast this turn that are black and are red cost X less cast, where X is the amount of life you lost this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Oh my goodness. Okay, so basically, oh my goodness. What this does is say, you know what? Let's just lose life. And of course, there are actually certain cards out there that allow you to lose essentially whatever amount of life that you want to lose for, I guess I should say, the amount of life that you have. And so by doing that, you reduce the cost of your spells, which is an incredibly powerful and potentially broken thing to do, because cost reduction obviously applies to not only one spell you're going to cast, but the next, the next, the next, the next, the next. And all of a sudden, you're casting a spell for like no mana and just taking all your opponents at once very, very easily. This commander, again, utilizes the vast resource of life in Commander, which you might not have in other formats. Again, in like a standard format, it's like, oh, okay, I can do it for like, let's say again, 19. If you're at 20, you can give 19 life. In Commander, assuming you're at 40, you can give 39 life, meaning that your red and black instants and sorceries all of a sudden, or sorry, I should say spells, all of a sudden are, well, reduced by 39. Now, you might not go exactly at 39, obviously, but even just going, down 30 is crazy. So, yeah, there's a lot of very big explosive plays in this commander. If you let it be activated even once, could just be deadly for you in game over. So let's talk about really quick a couple of cards that work well with it and kind of just illustrate why this is a kill on sight commander. First up, like I mentioned earlier, there are a good amount of just, hey, yeah, set your own life total cards, essentially, when it comes to going down. Mischievous Poltergeist, a 1/1. I think it's a spirit. I don't think a ghost is actually a creature type anymore, but maybe it is. Flying for 3 mana. Pay 1 life, regenerate. That's the important part right there. So, again, you can protect this by regenerating it, but it's paying 1 life. Cool. But most importantly, that is a repeatable activation that you can activate as many times as you want to, again, set your life total down. If you say, okay, yeah, I want to lose 30 life this turn, cool, do that. All of a sudden, your red and black spells all cost 30 less. Absolutely absurd. Sure, you're down to 10 life, but who cares? You're going to win because you can just use something like, well, Trader's Greed to maybe even do it again. Gain control of target creature till end of turn, untap the creature, gains haste till end of turn, add 2 mana of any one color. Yeah, usually these threaten effects are utilized to take an opponent's creature and say, cool, I can swing with it. But, yeah, with this kind of a command, you're like, oh no, these are great untap effects, and this one especially because, again, you're going to reduce that generic mana cost of this card, again, that 3 mana to nothing, so this costs a single red mana to untap your commander, to tap it again. Oh, and by the way, you get 2 mana back. So yeah, this is a very good threat effect for this deck. So you essentially just net mana with this. And then, yeah, again, if that same example was there, you know, losing 30 life, now all of a sudden, now it's 60. You haven't lost 60. You've tapped your commander twice to reduce it by 60 now, so you can then cast, well, a variety of spells. I'm going to go with a budget version of Exsanguinate, though, with, like, Cut to Ribbons. Ribbons, specifically. Aftermath out of your graveyard, each opponent loses X life. So, yeah, again, just with 2 activations of your commander, maybe even just 1 activation of you got more life than them, your opponents are just gone. Because all of a sudden you can cast, again, Ribbons for, like, X equals 60 without really all that much effort to do so. So, yeah, at the end of the day, Rowan San of War is most definitely a kill on sight commander. One that, again, has the potential to, even if they have nothing else on the board, you need to be wary, because the second they throw down anything that allows them to just lose any amount of life that they want, it probably is game over for you. 1 activation, again, of this can be deadly. 2 activations, obviously, can just be insane. There's a lot of crazy things you can do with this one. So, yes, definitely, if you see Rowan San of War on the other side of the table, know that it is a kill on sight commander. Moving on, we've got, well, Rowan's brother, Will, Scion of Peace, also a kill on-site commander. Now, I will preface this with, I personally believe that Rowan is slightly more deadly than Will. We'll talk about why, but still, Will is also one that you cannot take for granted. You need to say, oh my goodness, that is a crazy good commander on the other side of the table. Let's take them out. Yeah, everyone, let's focus on them. Yeah, a 2/4 human wizard with vigilance for 1 white and a blue. Tap spells you cast this turn that are white and or blue cost X less cast Rex the amount of life you gain this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So kind of like the opposite of Rowan. And yeah, kind of initially, like if you're a new player to Magic, I knew I would have thought about this. Like, oh, well, it's better because like I actually want to gain life. When it comes to actually losing life, though, that's easier to do. Again, you can have those pinpoint ways to lose whatever amount of life you want, essentially any amount of life up until, you know, the amount of life that you have. Whereas this one, yeah, I mean, gaining life is pretty easy to do. You can't just say, like, I choose to gain 100 life, but not doing anything. You know, that's not like Mischievous Poltergeist on the other side of things. That would be pretty broken. Regardless, there are really, really quick ways to gain an absurd amount of life, and when you do so, it kind of stacks upon itself because, again, this commander is in the color identity to utilize a bunch of untap effects. So, again, let's just go through some examples. Congregate. Very simple, very effective instant for 4 mana in total. Target player gains 2 life for each creature on the battlefield. Again, you are playing a 4-player game. Chances are there's a decent amount of creatures in play, even if there are, say, 10 creatures in total, which is a pretty reasonable amount for, you know, a 4-player game. Hey, you just gained 20 life. All of a sudden, again, all your spells, or your blue and white spells, are going to cost 20 less to cast. Quite easy for you to do some pretty crazy things. And again, you've got a lot of untap effects like, you know, Dramatic Reversal, a crazy good one, instant for 1 and a blue. But again, with that cost reduction that you're going to have, it's just going to be a single blue mana to untap all non-land permanents you control. So untap your mana rocks as well, get even more mana back, tap your commander again. And yeah, all of a sudden, all your spells cost, again, let's say 40 life less to cast. But of course, you can cast other spells that might be able to gain, you know, X life or whatnot and do some crazy things. And speaking of X spells, yeah, stroke of genius. Cards like this are, of course, not only engines for you, but also finishers. Target player draws X cards. Again, you can reduce not only X, but also that 2 generic mana. So it costs a single blue mana for you to do so. Again, drawing, say, 40 cards, that is basically game over because you're going to draw into even more untap effects, even more life gain effects, whatever you need. Yeah, also recursion spells as well to get some of your spells back to do them again. Of course, utilizing this also as a win condition as well, being like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll, you know, tap my commander again. All my spells cost 80 less, you know, untap my commander again. All of them cost, whatever, 120, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you just say, okay, I cast this. You draw 120 cards. Oh, by the way, I'll copy it with this effect and this effect. Oh, you all draw 120 cards. Oh, you don't have enough cards in your library. You all lose. So, yeah, again, Will is one that you have to still absolutely pay attention to. Just because Rowan, in my opinion, is more deadly, that doesn't mean that Will is not a kill on site commander. It is. It is a commander that you need to be wary of because, again, things can get out of control in absolutely no time. And again, when you think that nothing is going on, even if just Will is in play, again, like I just mentioned, how much can you reduce things? If you just have even 6 mana available, essentially, you can do some crazy things. Again, not Dramatic Reversal, Congregate, followed by Dramatic Reversal, untapping your mana rocks, doing it again, doing some crazy things. Yeah, it takes absolutely no time for you to just win the game out of nowhere with a commander like this. So yeah, Will, definitely a kill on site commander. Next up, we've got Bernard Ginger Sculptor. Now, this is a commander that kind of turns a certain theme on its head, typically. Aristocrats is typically in, well, you usually kind of think like Rakdos colors, Orzhov colors. You usually don't think of Bant, but hey, Bant is pretty crazy now with Aristocrats because of this one, a 3/3 Human Artificer for 1 in Bant colors. Each creature controlled, it's a food or golem, gets +2/+2 as trample. That's nice, but not really all that important. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may exile it. If you do create tokens, copy that creature, except say 1/1 food golem artifact or token to other types. And it has what a food can do, you know, pay 2 taps, sacrifice, gain 3 life. Now, it being a food doesn't really matter all that much. I mean, it might for certain builds out there. What matters is, hey, when any of your creatures die, you can replace them with a token copy, which means, well, you can use and abuse things like, say, ETBs. And by doing that, you can do it in some really crazy, powerful ways. So again, Bant typically doesn't have like an aristocrat style benefit, but there are plenty of crazy things that you can do with it. There's a lot of great sacrifice outlets, like, you know, like a greater good that you can take advantage of, things like that. And all of a sudden you can really say, hey, what creatures out there might have some really powerful ETBs that I want again, and maybe again. Like a Diluvian Primordial, a 5/5 avatar with flying for 7 mana. When it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, you may cast one target instant sorcery from that player's grave without paying its mana cost, and exile it, essentially. So essentially, this ETB is you get to cast 3 things for free. I should say up to 3 things, depending on what's in graveyards. Yeah, a lot of value to be had there, but again, if you've got a free sacrifice outlet in play, again, like a Greater Good, or, Fanatical Devotion, any of those kinds of cards, just sacrifice this, get a token copy of it, essentially. And yeah, it's just a 1/1, but basically a 3/3 with that, Anthem effect. Cool, who cares? What we care about is, yeah, get that ETB again. And yeah, there are ways to get that again and again and again. When it comes to, again, sacrifice outlets, I mean, like Evolutionary Elite, we can talk about ones that actually give you even more benefit too. Pay a green, sacrifice a creature, reveal card, stop your library to reveal a creature card, put in your hand the rest of the bottom of your library in random order. So again, getting a value out of that sacrifice. So yeah, just say, okay, cool, I got rid of this creature. I got an extra benefit from it. And now all of a sudden, I also get another creature in my hand that probably is a powerful ETB that I can then get into play and then sacrifice and do it again and again and again. And again, speaking of that, now because you are in Bant colors, you've got access to some of the best populate effects as well, like Selesnya Geologist, pay 2 and a green, exile target creature card from a graveyard, then populate. So get rid of your opponent's creatures out of their graveyards, and then also take advantage again of your ETBs again and again and again. Typically, when it comes to populate, players are taking advantage of, just like little tokens, like a 1/1 soldier or whatnot. You, though, are going to be like, no, I'm making food golem copy versions of incredibly powerful creatures with crazy ETBs, and I'm just going to keep paying this again and again and again, or utilizing a Song of the World Soul to essentially get it for free whenever you are casting any spell, just populating and just making things absolutely obnoxiously value-centric and crazy with this commander. So again, Bernard Ginger Sculptor, again, might not be the typical Riskret style commander, but it is one that is absolutely a kill on-site commander. If you let them get any kind of a value engine set up, you are going to be in big trouble, just like other kind of Riskret style commanders. So yeah, when you're looking for the threats on the board for the Riskret style commander like this one, you're looking for hey, oh, do they have a sacrifice outlet? Oh no, okay, they've got that. Oh, do they have some creatures with some ETBs? Oh no, oh, they've got that. Oh, do they have like their outlets and their benefits from this? Oh, they've got those, including the commander, of course. Yeah, you're going to be in big trouble. So yeah, make sure you're trying to disrupt this kind of a commander, because once they get things going, again, that value engine can be incredibly hard to stop. So yeah, Bernard Ginger Sculptor is definitely, in my opinion, a kill on-site commander. Moving on, we also have Hilda of the Icy Crown. This commander, my goodness, the potential for this one is just crazy, because there are certain cards out there. There's actually a good amount of cards out there that really work well with it, to the point where it can be quite, crazy. A 3/4 human warlock for 2 white and a blue. Whenever you tap an untapped creature opponent controls, you may pay 1. When you do, choose 1. Create a 4/4 white and blue elemental creature token. Get a counter each creature control or scry 2, then draw a card. So this one is crazy powerful again because of the cards it can interact with, the cards that it can just play incredibly well off of. And your only limitation really might be mana, because again, when you tap that untapped creature opponent controls, you have to pay 1. That being said, yeah, if you lean pretty heavily into ramp with a bunch of mana rocks in this kind of a deck, you can do some pretty absurd things. I mean, the first card that comes to mind, and the first card that really makes this commander shine, is Opposition. A crazy powerful card that I can't believe is budget now still. I mean, it got reprinted and finally dropped in price a ton. Yeah, an enchantment for 4 mana, tap an untapped creature, control tap target artifact, creature, or land. A brutally effective card. A card that says, hey, I'm just going to shut you down. And again, you're just utilizing any of your creatures. So, tap, say, your commander. Tap down opponent's creature. You get your trigger from your commander. You pay 1 mana. You make a 4/4 elemental. You tap that. You tap down another creature. You pay 1. You do it again and again and again. You're basically just saying, with this, I can just tap down creatures and pay 1 to make a 4/4 every single time. All of a sudden, you've got an army, and then next turn you do it again, and then you've got a double-sized army, and then you just tap down, their artifacts as well, their mana rocks. Take them out of mana, take out their lands too, take out everything. This is a crazy powerful card, and again, it's just one card that really synergizes incredibly well with this commander. And there are, of course, other ones as well, like, Court Street Denizen, a 2/2 human soldier for 3 mana in total. Whenever another white creature in the battlefield you control, tap target creature opponent controls. Again, the elemental that we're making is a 4/4 white and blue elemental, so that does count, obviously. ability. So again, essentially, hey, just tap down one of your opponent's creatures. All of a sudden, you get that trigger, pay 1, make a 4/4. Cool. It triggers this. Then you do it again, and again, and again, and again. And all of a sudden, again, you have an army out of nowhere. Or again, you can, scry to draw a card if you need to. You can get counters on your creatures. You can do whatever you need. So you have win conditions. You've got value engines going. And, just to point out one more, because again, there's an absurd amount of cards that work well with this. Junkwinder costs 5 blue, but it's only going to cost basically blue, because it's got affinity for tokens. Whenever a token enters battlefield, control tap target non-land permanent opponent controls. It doesn't untap to control next untap step. This one's incredibly brutal because it shuts down that, well, whatever, permanent you tap down, but non-land creature. It taps down their creature, essentially. Again, you get that trigger for your commander, and it keeps that tap down, and it just keeps triggering itself over and over again. Yeah, a crazy, brutal, effective card. There's so many ways to work really well with this card. There's so many ways to just power up this commander. And yeah, one of them is just like Verity Circle. You can take advantage of this commander in this deck built around and just do crazy things like, hey, whenever a creature opponent controls becomes tapped, if it is declared as an attacker, you may draw a card. So again, every single time you're doing what this deck wants to do, you are drawing an absurd amount of cards. And of course, there are certain cards you might utilize to tap down all your opponent's creatures at once. And then, yeah, you're just drawing like 20 cards at once with this. Absolutely crazy. Speaking of that amount of cards, yeah, Elegith Crossroads Augur. Again, another card that just synergizes so well with this commander. If you would scry a number of cards, draw that many cards instead. So again, our commander has, with one of the abilities, essentially scry 2, then draw a card, one of the options. Instead of it being that, it's now just, oh, hey, draw 3? Yeah, absolutely crazy. Every single time you tap that opponent's creature, draw 3 cards. So again, the potential for Hilda the Icy Crown is just crazy. Again, it has so many synergies, so many cards that work well with it. Again, you've got to be looking out for like 5, 6, 7 different cards that basically combo with this and make it so they can shut down all opponents' plans, make an army that can actually win you the game. Obviously, you can also pump that army and you can just draw down into your other cards. Yeah, Hilda the Icy Crown is definitely, in my opinion, a kill on-site commander. Moving on to one that Eddie actually pointed out on one of our episodes, the Master of Multiplied is a kill on-site commander as well, a 4/3 Time Lord Rogue, because that's the thing with Myriad, that costs 4 black and a red. The Legend rule doesn't apply to creature tokens you control, so that's already a very powerful thing, especially with that Myriad. But of course, on top of that, triggered abilities you control can't cause you to sacrifice or exile creature tokens you control. So essentially, yeah, I'm just going to keep making more and more copies of myself, essentially. So, yeah, you swing the first time, you're making, 3 extra copies, or 2 extra copies, I should say, because 1 for each opponent, so you've got 3 in total. Then you swing again next time, and you've got, times 3 again. And every single time you're just building and building and building your army, essentially, never sacrificing any of them because of its own ability. And yeah, basically this is just a one-person army just taking over the entire board. And again, if your opponents don't deal with it, they are in big trouble. Of course, you do have things like Shared Animosity that can pump the power. You've got ways to get your creatures through, like give them fear or whatnot. You've got plenty of ways to essentially say, yeah, if you don't stop this, it's just going to keep multiplying again and again and again, hence the name. So yeah, this card actually is just a win condition all in one, and you've got some ways to make it incredibly deadly. I mean, hey, how about even just Rising of the Day? An enchantment for 2 and a red, creature control of haste, ledger creature control pulls them with 0. So again, a nice additional pump effect, which is just a nice thrown in thing. But yeah, being able to swing right away with this can make it so that, oh, okay, I'm just going to start building things right now, getting my creatures out there. And I kind of forgot to mention one thing that makes this incredibly deadly is, yeah, you're in red. You've got extra combat spells. So yeah, just keep getting extra combat, swing even more, and all of a sudden, your Master Multiplied is just going to be, well, multiplied, and you're going to have an absurd amount of them out there. I mean, also, you can go in a direction of utilizing things like Twin Flame, making it so that you can copy creatures temporarily, usually, right, for 2 mana, essentially, and strive for an extra 3. Yeah, you can copy your legendary creatures and make extra token copies. Cool. Good for you. But also, now you don't have to sacrifice those creatures. It's just basically cheaper clone effects now with something like this, or a Heat Shimmer, so being able to utilize those to say, oh, cool, I'm, make extra copies of, oh, I don't know, maybe like Atali Trauma Storm. You can go in that direction as well, where you're like, okay, I'll get other legendary creatures in play that usually you can get extra copies of, them, and do some pretty crazy things. Again, Atali says, when attacks, exile the top card of each player's library, cast any number of them up, paying their mana cost. Yeah, one Atali is already pretty brutal. Getting multiple is crazy, so there's some absolutely crazy things that you can do with this one. Again, if you are going up against this one, do not take it lightly. Yes, it has a decently high mana value. Of course, you've got some ways to, really spike your mana, though, in these colors. You have some ritual type effects to get it out quickly, to be aggressive with it, to fill the board in absolutely no time, and to take your opponents down. So yeah, the Master Multiplied, definitely a kill on-site commander. Next up, Okek, Deepest Foundation, a kill on-site commander from our recent set, a 6/6 god with vigilance that costs 6 mana in total. If one or more creature tokens you create under your control, 3 times that many of those tokens are created instead. When it dies, flip it over essentially, and it turns into Temple of Civilization. Taps for a white, pay 2 and a white tap, transform it back. Only if you attack with 3 more creatures, only as a sorcery. That's incredibly easy for you to do. Again, basically, if you actually made even just 1 token with the front side, again, that turns into 3, and then all of a sudden you can just swing with those, and then you can flip it back over, so it's quite easy. Yeah, I mean, token doublers are crazy good. This is a, again, creature-specific token tripler, which is crazy, and, it doesn't take long for this to just take over a game at all. I mean, it is mono white, but still, yeah, this is a card that some might say is kind of lazy design by Wizards, just saying like, hey, okay, yeah, doublers are pretty popular, let's do a tripler now. Yeah, triplers are crazy powerful. We've learned that from things like, City on Fire. I guess Fire Emancipation's the original, though. Nyx Bloom, essentially. Yeah, there's some crazy things that happen. Just think about with this one, like, Call the Copper Coats. Hey, yeah, instant for 3 mana, but if you're going to choose all opponents, it's 7, right before your turn. This is usually when you cast it. Choose any of target opponents, create X 1/1 human creature tokens or X number of creatures those opponents control. So again, let's say they've got 20 creatures in play in total. That's reasonable for a commander game potentially, depending on the situation. Let's just even say 10, even if they have 10, okay? We're gonna just get 3 times that many now, though. So essentially they've got, again, 10 creatures in play. You are, for 7 mana, making 30 because your commander is going to triple that up. So again, the more creatures they have, the more deadly this spell is because you're going to have 3 times the amount of army that they have, and you probably already have even more creatures than they do. So just out of nowhere, again, for 7 mana, you're like, yeah, oh, by the way, I just made just an absurdly large army just out of nowhere. And yeah, we're going to make it even bigger with like something like Visions of Glory. Create 1/1 white human creature token for each creature you control. So again, you just made 30 creatures, plus you're coming to 31, whatever it is. You cast this, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, cool, I'll make another 31. But wait, that's like times 3, so that's what, 93 more? Lots of math here. Oh, and then by the way, I can flash this back for 8 white. Oh, wait, no. It costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander I own, which is 6. So there we go. I'm just going to cast this for 4 mana, do that again, and all of a sudden you have an absurd amount of creatures in play. And yeah, they might just be 1/1s or whatnot, but of course you do have a lot of great anthems in mono white with like, Dictative Heliod, cool, flash, creature control +2/+2, so all of a sudden you just tripled up the damage now of all those creatures. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to really take advantage of this one. A card that, some players might not play with because, again, it's from an Infinity set, though it technically is legal. Starlight Spectacular is just a game-ending card with this commander. Parade at the beginning of combat, your turn, choose creatures you control 1 at a time until each creature control has been chosen. Each of those creatures get ++1 until end of turn for each creature chosen before it. Yeah, basically, if you have like 20 creatures, you're like, oh, okay, that one's a ++1. That, last one I choose is going to get +20/+20, essentially. So, pretty absurd. Yeah, this is a card that can just make math really, really difficult. Again, especially with a commander that can make an absurd amount of creature tokens in absolutely no time. Again, if you've got like 100+ creatures, just have fun. Like this one, then this one, then this one. Impossible to to really keep track of. But basically, it's like, oh no, I just win because I'm going to swing out all of you. Unless you can stop that, you're all just gone from being hit by even one of my tiny little 1/1s, which is now absurdly large. So yeah, definitely a commander that is kill on sight. Though again, keep in mind, if you do take it out, unless you like exiled it or bounced it back to their hand, which they can just recast, obviously. Yeah, they can just flip it back over quite easily. So, yeah, it's a commander that can be hard to take out, and also one that needs to be taken out before things get out of control. So, please do. Definitely a kill on sight commander. Now, all of the new Ixalan gods are pretty deadly, but one other one that I do want to point out is Okek, Accidental Deepest Might. Because this is one that, again, once the setup occurs, the taking out of opponents can happen in absolutely no time. A 4/4 ledge creature god with trample that costs 4 mana in total in red. If a red source you control would deal an amount of non-combat damage less than over Accidental's power to an opponent, that source deals damage equal to its power instead. Dies, flip it over again. Hey, taps for red, pay 2 in red, tap, transform it. Only if red source you control dealt 4 more non-combat damage this turn only as a sorcery. That's quite easy to meet again, so you can flip it over quite easily. And yeah, again, so it's a hard to deal with god that's decently low to ground at 4 mana. It kind of changes just the way that the game works for you. Again, your non-combat damage, you might have a lot of sources out there that just deal 1, and all of a sudden it's like, oh no, instead of just dealing 1 to each opponent, it's at the very least 4. So this is like a ×4 multiplier, at least, for the amount of damage that you're going to be dealing with many of your effects. So essentially, you've got some cards like, oh Naginata, a very simple equipment. Only be attached with a creature power 3 or greater. Obviously, our commander meets that. Equip creature gets +3 with 0 and has trample. The trample's nice, not really necessary though. All of a sudden, for just, 1 mana to get it out, 2 mana to equip it, we are saying that every single one of our non-combat damage sources is going to deal 7 now instead of 4. And 4 was already an absurd amount. Going from 1 to 7 is insane. And it can be even larger than that, of course, like a Blacklighter Forged. Hey, +1 for each land you control. Even though you're not in green, you don't have a lot of ways to, get extra lands out. Like a Wayfarer's Bauble you've got access to, obviously, which I love Wayfarer's Bauble. But still, let's just say even this is pumping +6/+6, okay? All of a sudden, my commander's at 10 power. Every single one of my non-combat damage sources is going to be dealing 10 instead of probably 1. Again, so hey, there's even one more that I forgot was actually here. Unleash Fury. So again, a card that's like, oh, by the way, my commander was at 10. Now all of a sudden, at 20, double the power to our creature till end of turn. So again, you might think you are safe. You might think you are fine. But all of a sudden, in a single turn, you can go to just, the opposite of that. A complete opposite of that, especially with a color that has ritual effects as well that can just have things coming out of absolutely nowhere, like a Mana Geyser, and saying like, oh, okay, you thought you were safe. All of a sudden, my commander's back in play. I have it equipped. I've doubled its power. It has 20 power now, and every single non-combat damage source I have is dealing 20 damage. So yeah, like an Impact Tremors. Hey, whenever creature in the battlefield to control 1 damage each opponent, whenever any creature comes into play under my control, again, with that scenario, it's like, okay, 20 damage per creature coming into play. I've got ways to make creature tokens, of course. I've got creatures that are impactful coming into play. Even again, if it's just at 4, that's still an absurd amount of damage. Again, for each opponent, that's 4. That's what, 12 damage at the least with our commander in play. Again, that just obviously steps things up when you step that power up. So yeah, things can go really, really quickly. Even just with your opponents helping you out too, like a Gimli counter of kills. Whenever a creature opponent controls dies, it deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. Yeah, that turns into 4, which is pretty absurd. But again, with the more and more power that your commander has, yeah, your opponent's creatures get taken out by basically anything is just going to take them out. So again, this is a commander that can really swing very, very quickly. Does require some setup, but yeah, with pretty minimal setup, you can take your opponents out in absolutely no time. And there's so many ways, there's so many different avenues to deal out damage with triggered effects, activated abilities to all your opponents. This can go really, really fast. So again, over accidental, definitely a kill on sight commander. Moving on, we've got yet another kill on sight commander from the most recent set with Sovereign Okek Ahu. I never know how to do that name, sorry. A 3/4 cat noble with ward 2 that costs 4 mana in Celestia. Whenever it attacks for each creature you control with power greater than that creature's base power, put a number of counters on it equal to the difference. Now, this is a commander that is kind of wordy, but it's kind of simple in what it actually does. It might be kind of confusing the first 5 times you try to read through this, but basically, hey, if you have a 1/1 creature and you pump it up to like a 3/3 and it attacks, this attacks, I guess, you get 2 extra counters on the creature because that's the difference between what its base power was. So this just can keep building and building and building throughout the game. So the next time it attacks, it's at 4, -1, extra 4 counters. This can be pretty absurd, especially because you have access to colors that give you a lot of anthems and +1 counter synergies. So you have a lot of ways to increase from that base power. I don't know why they threw ward 2 on this, but they did, so it's slightly harder to deal with as well. So this is a commander that is decently hard to deal with. It also is a commander that says, yeah, with very minimal setup, you can just make your army, which again, you are in colors that can make an incredibly wide army with a lot of creature tokens, very, very deadly in absolutely no time. Again, a very simple Gaia's Anthem solves it for you, right? Enchantment for 3 mana, creatures you control get +1. All of a sudden, hey, again, my little 1/1s are now 2/2s. They swing, they get an extra counter on them, and that just starts building things again and again and again and again. And of course, you've got access to even more anthems to make things deadlier. Also, you have access to other counter synergies like Good Fortune Unicorn. Whenever a creature is battlefield under your control, you get a counter on that creature. Again, all you need is 1 point difference for that power to get the ball rolling with this commander. For every single one of your creatures, you can keep building and building and building on that power, well, I guess, and toughness in this situation as well. Failure to Retreat does both. Whenever a land is battlefield under your control, choose 1. Get a 2/2 white cat beast creature token if I could talk, or get a counter on each creature control. They get vigilance on turn. So essentially, this can either make you an army to help you go wide, or also get counters on them to help build their power and make it so that your commander is more and more impactful. And also vigilance swing, freely. Of course, you are in colors, I should say, with color green. You have a lot of ways to land ramp to get a lot of advantage out of this. So yes, there are plenty of ways to go wide in these colors. There are plenty of ways to build up on power and plenty of ways to take advantage of that trigger. There's also ways to take advantage of, well, all of this with Champion of Lambholt in getting your creatures through. Creatures power less than this power can't block creature control. Whenever creature is battlefield under control, get a counter on this again. yeah, this already could just become absolutely massive throughout the game in a regular deck where you're just like, yeah, I'm just making a bunch of creature tokens. Cool, I'm able to build this power. All of a sudden, all my creatures are unblockable, and this is like a 10-10, essentially. With this commander especially, it's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm already building up on that base power just by getting creatures in play. The other things that I do, anthems, other counter synergies, all of a sudden this is at like 20 power, and there's definitely no creatures out there going to block any of my creatures, and my opponents are incredibly big trouble. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to really take advantage of this commander. Again, if you're kind of reading this the first time, you're like, oh, okay, that sounds good, I guess. But seeing it in practice is pretty crazy, and just how quickly this kind of a commander can snowball. So yeah, definitely, in my opinion, a commander that you need to look out for. Definitely a kill on sight commander. And finally, a recent one. And yeah, there's a lot of cards that were spoiled, over the Ixalan block. And yeah, I said block, but I guess set. There was a lot of cards that were spoiled, and these other kinds of Jurassic Park cards that were spoiled too, and some things might have gotten overlooked. But do not underestimate the power of Ellie and Alan Paleontologists, because yeah, again, this is the kind of commander that might not look like a lot might be going on, but all of a sudden one play can just change everything about a game. A 2/5 human scientist for 5 mana in total and Bant. Tap, exile a creature card from your graveyard, discover X, or X the mana value of the exile card, activate on sorcery. Discover is incredibly powerful, basically like a cascade. Exile cards to the top of your library to exile a non-land card with a mana value, with that mana value or less, cast without paying its mana cost, or put in your hand, put the rest of your library in a random order. Basically, get something potentially massive off the top of your library for free that you can cast for free. If you don't need it right then and there, get in your hand. But more likely, yeah, just cast it for free. Yeah, it's very easy to get, creature cards into your graveyard in a wide variety of ways. There are even ones that actually just put themselves into your graveyard, like, a Titanoth Rex. 11/11 trampling dinosaur beast with cycling for 1 and a green. Also, when you cycle, you get a trample counter on creature control. Nice. But yes, being able to cycle this directly in your graveyard gives you a benefit. And also on top of that, it gives you a target for your commander. All of a sudden, you exile from your graveyard, you're discovering 9. Again, for just tapping your commander, you are discovering 9, potentially getting something else massive off the top of your library, basically for free. Being able to just play that card and say, oh yeah, well, look at all this value I'm getting. And then also, when it comes to these colors, you've got so many ways to untap your commander. And other creatures you control might have other abilities too. But yeah, Great Oak Guardian is just an example of one that you might just even hit off the top. Flash, reach, 4/5, enters the battlefield. Creatures target player controls get +2/+2 until end turn. Untap them. Typically, you're going to pick your own. But yeah, being able to just pump your creatures, untap them, including your commander, to then utilize it again. Maybe you've got a free sacrifice outlet in play, like a Greater Good, to help you get more and more things in your graveyard to get value out of them as well. And then all of a sudden, yeah, sacrifice this, discover it again. Being able to utilize all those untap effects to really take advantage of this can be absolutely crazy. And of course, yeah, you maybe have some ways that you can set the top of your library with, like a Brutalizer Exarch. 3/3 Phyrexian Cleric, enters the battlefield, choose 1, search for a creature card, put around top of your library, or, put a non-creature permanent on the bottom of someone's library. When it comes to these synergies with this commander, yeah, being able to go get any creature out of your deck, putting it right on top of your library so that you can activate your commander to then, well, just discover X essentially, and know that you're going to be able to get that thing off the top of your library and cast it. Yeah, a lot of crazy synergies with this one. And again, with just minimal setup, and maybe even just at some point, you could just even get lucky hitting things off the top of your library and just, yeah, setting yourself up in a crazy way where your opponents don't realize it's going to happen. Yeah, this one can actually be pretty brutal as well. So yeah, definitely look out for this one. Definitely a kill on sight commander. And yeah, graveyard hate against this one can be incredibly effective. So make sure that your deck has some graveyard hate. But now this episode is coming to a close. Let me know what your thoughts on these commanders are. Are they kill on sight commanders in your opinion? Are there other commanders out there from, the last half of this year that are kill on sight commanders that I did not mention? And yeah, again, there's a ton of them out. There's a ton of very powerful commanders from this year. So unfortunately, I couldn't go through every single one of them in this episode, but I went through many of them, trying to give you a variety of commanders to talk about. But yeah, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all these. Make sure you check out that card list link in the description below for the cards I talked about in this episode. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.